counter at the same time. But she's in from Atlanta. She wrote a really awesome book, and she's got some really awesome stuff to talk about. We talk about mothers and daughters today, which is really important because we're going into 2018, so you want to develop a good relationship with your daughter because she is literally going to be you someday. She's going to be somebody's mother. She's going to be a woman in the workplace. She's going to be a woman of God in the church. So we need to develop that so that she can be the best that she can be and that gift can be used. So without further ado, she is the CEO of MADE, which is Mothers and Daughters Enterprise, and she's also the author of Tailor-Made Moms. Allow me to introduce to you, Dominate Nation, Miranda Weisinger.
Hello everyone. Hello, SaDon. Thank you so much for having me on your show today.
Hey, well, welcome. So let's talk about you, a local person that kind of ran away.
I don't know if I want to say ran away, but yes, I am definitely a Chi-Town woman. I was born and raised here, and I relocated to Georgia.
Okay.
By way of what God told me to do.
Amen.
But
Obedience.
It was definitely a big challenge for me.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about that a lot in my book.
Okay.
That I actually got stab wounds.
Oh, ouch.
I was torn apart. It took me 5 years to actually say, okay, God, I surrender. I submit to what you are saying, that I'm supposed to be in Georgia and not in Chicago. It was a hard decision for me because I love my city.
Amen. So where you go to high school?
I went to Simeon, the greatest high school in Chicago.
Well, she said it, I didn't. So that's between you guys and her. But why were you so hard at it? Because I know you said that you got stabbed and you were beaten and you just didn't want to leave. But what was the root of that?
I resisted it because this was the city that I knew. This was
comfort zone.
My comfort zone. It helped prepare me. It was like, I feel like living in Chicago, if you can live in Chicago, you can live anywhere. So I was accustomed to this type of lifestyle and this culture. Also, I had the greatest relationship with my dad. I did not want to leave my dad. So those two things were my top things. Being here with my family, all of my friends, and going to a new place where I knew no one, it was very challenging. But I knew 5 years later that it was a God move.
Amen. When I look back over my life.
Yes.
So what was the key element in getting you out of your own comfort zone?
The key element, I think, was just obeying God. Period, point blank. Period, point blank. Just obeying God.
Amen. So speaking of being obedient, you wrote a book, and to write a book, as I know personally, takes a lot of obedience. So what was the driving force behind Tailor-Made Mom?
The driving force behind Tailor-Made Mom, that's another thing that was very challenging.
Okay.
I was told to write this book about 3 to 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I resisted it because it was something that I had never done. Okay. And I was used to what you just said, staying in my lane. Although being a mother that's who I am. I'm a mother. The fact that I needed to write about it was totally different. So for me, that was not that was actually getting out of my lane. So that was getting out of my comfort zone. But a lot of mothers would ask me all the time, how did you and your daughter become so close?
Okay.
They wanted to emulate almost our relationship. And I was inspired by that. And also my pastor.
Okay.
He told me years and years ago, he said, you need to put you and your daughter's relationship in a book. So many women need what you have to say. So I decided last year to go ahead, buckle down, and start writing this book. And now it's actually here, published, Tailor-Made Mom.
Okay, now before we jump into the book, let's shout out your pastor, because obviously he's a wise man.
Yes, I have to shout out my pastor, who I call my Rocky Balboa in my book. My book is dedicated to him. His name is Bishop Victor L. Powell, Rhema Word Cathedral.
Okay, shout out to them so they know we didn't forget about him.
Yes, Rhema, I love you. Bishop Powell, I love you.
And that's shout out to the other piece of this Tailor-Made Mom puzzle, your daughter.
Yes, I have to shout out my daughter. My daughter, her name is Monet Dark,
Okay.
She is a teacher in Atlanta, Georgia.
All right.
She teaches high school students, and Tailor-Made Mom would not exist had it not been for her being a great daughter. She actually submitted to my teachings.
Which is hard.
Yes, and we love each other. We have gone through challenges together, but we've overcome them, and that's why I'm able to write Tailor-Made Mom.
Okay, so now let's get into the book.
I love you, Monet.
Oh, and if you're watching live, she's the one holding the multiple cameras right now, so she's on the lens. But let's get into the book. I know we talked about there were 4 principles that you wanted to discuss.
Yes. Well, my 4 founding principles of mother and daughter enterprise is love, respect, honesty, and forgiveness. And I tie most of those into my book, well, all of those into my book in some of the chapters. My book is 12 chapters long.
All right.
And love is definitely, of course, what every relationship needs in order to survive, whether it's a mother, a daughter, a husband, a wife, a mother and son, father and son, so on and so forth. So love is one of the things that I talk about, and also respect. A lot of times, and I reference this in my book, a lot of times, you know, with the culture now, when you see small girls that are 2 and 3 years old with their hand on their hip and they're pointing their finger at their mama, you know, and all of that, and, you know, everybody's laughing and thinking that it's cute. And then when the daughter turns 13 and have no respect for the mother, it's definitely, it's taking over really our culture. It's becoming what people feel is cute and okay. But then when they turn 12 and 13 years old and they're disrespectful, you're ready to give them away to auntie or grandmama.
Right.
So I deal with teaching your daughter respect at a young age, that the two of you all aren't friends.
Okay. And
I want to make sure that the audience knows that my book is not necessarily about becoming cool with your daughter.
Okay. Because you got to make some tough decisions.
That's right.
You got to set some clear boundaries
that
may not necessarily be all that popular.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So what does respect look like, or how do you gather that respect if you lost it?
If you lost the respect, it depends on how far out it has actually gotten.
Okay.
Because some people don't know how to bring it back in. So for those people, I recommend in my book for them to seek a counselor.
All right, get out and get some real help.
Yes, get some real help, because you may not be able to help the situation. The other way I say I recommend is that you actually sit down, talk with your daughter. The two of you all have an honest conversation, because that's a lot of times we don't actually do that. We don't we're not transparent and honest with our daughter, and let's pause right there. So when we start talking about transparency, I mean, most parents, I mean, you know, my mama didn't do no wrong. You know, at least not any wrong that as a child. Yeah, they think we're angels.
Right. I didn't do any wrong. She didn't do any wrong. We were both perfect as kids. But as you get older, you start to find out all these little secrets about, you know, what went on when you were a child, or what went on in the relationships between your parents. You know, you may have a brother or a sister outside the home, or there may have been some financial difficulties that you felt but didn't understand. So when you say transparent, what do you really mean?
Well, I talk about this in my book. I was very transparent with my daughter as it relates to things that happened when I was younger.
Okay. Talk about relationships?
I talked about relationships. I talked about family issues. I talked about, you name it, I talked about it. Let's just say that. I wanted to prepare her.
All right.
I wanted her to know that I'm not God. The only perfect person on the earth, in the world is God, Jehovah God. So don't look at me as mommy was perfect. Right. Because you aren't going to be perfect. Right. And if I give you that, if I embed in you that you have to be perfect, then you're going to hide secrets from me.
Right.
You're not going to be honest because you're going to say, I let you down. You're going to be too afraid to tell me anything.
Yeah, you're going to turn into Adam and start hiding.
Yes, exactly, absolutely. So what I did, I talked about this in my book. I would, some stories I would share with her, and I would be vulnerable and let her know that it was me.
Okay.
And then other times I would, if it was too
Graphic,
much,
yeah,
I would use another name, like character's name. I had a friend named Minnie, and she dated this guy named Mickey.
Okay.
And her and Mickey, got into
together.
a relationship,
Right.
and so on and so forth. But I would use characters' names. Some of the stories were mine, and some of the stories were friends of mine or someone that I may have gone through something with, and use their story. But I always wanted to let her know that this is real life.
Right.
People make mistakes. So I wanted to set that up so that way she could feel honest. She can feel that she could be honest with me and be transparent, and she wouldn't make some of the same mistakes that I made.
Right. But inevitably, we still gonna make them.
Absolutely.
And at least for me personally, I think that the hardest part for people to understand their mistakes is that you're not the only one.
That's right.
So when you're hiding it, or anybody at home right now listening, if you're hiding something from your mom, if you're hiding something from your daughter, do realize that stuff that happens to you is not uncommon. Especially when you don't have the tools. So if you don't have the tools to be in relationships, chances are you're not gonna be successful at them. So when it goes bad, or you do something, or something happens, go to somebody that knows. My daughters especially.